the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Harvard's University Houghton Library before settling in at the BSO. She is a member of the Society of American Archivists, the New England Archivists, the Association for Recorded Sound Collections, and the New England Music Librarians. She served as the chair of the Society of American Archivists Performing Arts Roundtable meeting from 2002 to 2005, and as a representative at large for the New England Archivists from 2002 to 2005. In addition to the project being presented today, she has directed a number of preservation and access projects for the BSO, including a scrapbook microfilm filming project funded by the NEH from 1993 to 1995, and a privately funded Boston Pop Score microfilming project in 1996. She has also overseen several projects to reformat and facilitate access to at-risk audiovisual materials, including live concert recordings, radio broadcasts, and telecasts dating back to the early 1950s. These projects have been funded by the ARSC, the Grammy Foundation, and by anonymous donors. Sarah Funky Donovan is the digital project archivist at the Boston Symphony Orchestra. After obtaining undergraduate and graduate degrees in music, she pursued a degree in library science at Simmons Graduate School of Library and Information Science. While still a student at Simmons, Sarah assisted with an audio digitization project in Tufts University Digital Collections and Archives. Working with the digitized episodes of 1950s This I Believe radio program, she transcribed episode essays, synchronized audio with transcripts using the variations annotation software, and created metadata records. Upon graduation from Simmons in May 2012, Sarah was hired by the BSO senior archivist Bridget Carr to complete the NEH funded digitization project that will be presented today. Sarah has also presented on the BSO's program book digitization project at the New England Archivist Spring 2014 meeting in Fort Smith, New Hampshire, and has assisted Bridget in highlighting the project via exhibitors booth at the 2014 Society of American Archivists meeting in DC. Sarah is a member of NEMLA and New England Archivists, and is currently serving as the New England Archivist Spring 2016 Program Committee. She is also serving her second year as Secretary Treasurer for NEMLA. Thank you.
Okay, well, Sarah has me using the Prezi software, so it's my first time, though, so if I need some help, she's right here, so that's good. Okay, founded in 1881 by Henry Lee Higginson, the BSO has evolved into one of the largest orchestral operations in the world. During its 133-year history, the BSO has been led by only 15 music directors, including some of the people you see here: Sir George Henschel, Wilhelm Gericke, Arthur Nikisch, Pierre Monteux, Serge Koussevitzky, Charles Munch, Eric Leinsdorf, Seiju Zawa, James Levine, just to name a few. And recently, Andres Nilssons began his tenure as our 15th music director. The BSO has given more than 17,000 concerts since its founding and has commissioned and presented more than 400 US and world premieres, including major works by Prokofiev, Stravinsky, Barber, Copland, Bartok, Elliott Carter, of course, and Jordan Harbison. For these reasons, the performance history of the BSO and the program books for the 17,000 plus concerts produced over the last 13 decades represent a very valuable resource for the study of American orchestral and cultural history. The BSO's program notes have over the years been so highly valued for their substance that a brief experiment with making the notes shorter and informal during the mid-1970s met with a public outcry. This is what our program book looks like, our leaflet, the program leaflet looked in the 75-76 season. And then these are Symphony Hall's tacky programs. The critics did not respond kindly. So needless to say, those didn't last very long. I'm constantly reminded of the importance placed on the concert programs by our subscribers as well as by researchers. They save them over the years, and a month does not go by when I'm not contacted by a subscriber or a family member who's cleaning out an attic, and they've been holding on to the programs all these years, and they really go out of their way to find out who to contact at the Boston Symphony and to see if we have any gaps in our collection, and if before they send them to the recycling center. And we have been able to fill in some gaps that way. We do have 98% or probably 99% of all of our concert programs. So I never turn anybody away without at least hearing what they have. So now I was just going to talk a little bit, and this is just a background for the project that Sarah's going to be focusing on. A little bit about the evolution of the BSO's program book, just a little bit. The earliest BSO concert programs produced between the orchestra's founding in 1881 and the 1887-88 season consisted of a single sheets of paper listing the basic concert information regarding the repertoire, conductor, and soloists. So here's our very first concert program from October 22nd, 1881. Beginning with the 1888-89 season, the first book-style programs, including advertisements, program notes, were produced during the first conducting tenure of Austrian-born conductor Wilhelm Gericke. They became more and more comprehensive during the ensuing years. From the very beginning, the BSO program notes were eagerly collected by patrons and scholars and regarded for their valuable information that they contained. Of particular note were the editorial tenures of Philip Hale and John Burke. Philip Hale was a widely respected Boston-based organist and music critic who wrote and edited the program notes from 1901 until his death in 1934. The average number of pages in program books during his tenure grew to about 50 pages and included additional features such as the orchestra rosters, all the members of our orchestra, and special essays called entr'actes that were meant to be read during intermission, and probably is why so many people brought the program books home, because there was so much good reading in them. Since the late 1880s, loose concert programs have been bound into book form at the end of each concert season. Over the years, music and research libraries from all over have subscribed to the bound volumes because of their value as a historical resource. These bound volumes, however, take up a lot of space in the stacks, as a lot of you may know, some of you. And in the 23 years that I've been working at the BSO, I know that several libraries have deaccessioned their collection of the bound volumes. Now, they were microfilmed in the mid-1970s by the company that used to be UMI, but there really wasn't good access to the contents of the microfilm. So as a performing organization, the BSO's performance history and the associated historical record captured in the program books represent, as you would expect, the backbone of our entire archival collection. So this is reference request in an analog archives. The BSO's full-time archives program was established 23 years ago with the assistance of a startup grant from the NHPRC, and I was a lucky person who got the one-year job, and it turned into 23 years. So it's been a wonderful job to have, I must say. When I started working in the position 23 years ago, I started to log research requests, and I quickly noticed that the overwhelming majority of inquiries, especially those from outside the organization, were related to the BSO's performance history. I would get the kinds of questions like how many times the BSO has performed a work, and on which dates and under which conductors and with which soloists, or the first time a soloist or conductor performed with the BSO. Somebody wanting to confirm the date of a particular concert where they might have gone on a date actually with their future spouse. We get questions like that all the time. Sometimes users wanted to see program notes for a particular work to provide background to a theoretical analysis of the works that were on the program. Or the user wanted to make a comparison of program notes for the same work over a period of time. And then also a lot of people want to consult program notes associated with the premieres of a particular work. And oftentimes, especially during Kusevitsky's tenure, these were often written by the composers themselves. Or users would want to investigate program notes during a particular, and performance history during a particular time period of national interest to see what kind of music was performed, i.e. the German music performed during and after World War I. Or even the questions, how many times has a BSO performed in a particular city or at a particular venue? I was unable to answer those questions prior to our project, the last one. Most of the questions, however, I was able to answer, but not without considerable effort. An inquiry about the history of the BSO's performance of Bartók's Concerto for Orchestra would take me the good part of an hour. After receiving the inquiry, I would take the elevator, or preferably walk up 3 flights of stairs to the BSO's program office, pull the performance history cards from our program annotator's office, find a photocopier machine that worked, photocopy the front and the back of each card, return cards to the program office, return to the archives, write a letter, and send photocopies of the cards to the researcher. If the researcher wanted also to have copies of the program notes, I would then use the performance history cards to identify the date of the concert, go to our archive stacks, find the corresponding program, photocopy the program page and the program notes, return loose programs to the stack, write a letter, and send photocopies and charge a nominal research fee. There was a clear need for a better, more streamlined process to access our performance history data and to access our program books. In the mid-1990s, I had one of my volunteers, I have great volunteers through the Boston Symphony Association of Volunteers, started a BSO performance history database using Lotus Approach software. We later migrated this to an Access database, and in 2000 we migrated the data to OPAS, which is specialized software that's used by orchestras actually throughout the world. And so by 2010, my volunteers had entered information on more than 17,000 BSO concerts into our OPAS database. So having an internal database greatly facilitated the task of providing information to researchers about performance history, but we now hankered to be able to enable researchers and patrons the ability to conduct these searches themselves at the BSO's website, www.bso.org. So this is when we came up with the idea to apply to NEH for funds that would enable us to scan all of the BSO's program books back to 1881 so that there would be a complete digital collection of the BSO's program books, and then build a user-friendly search engine that would enable patrons to search the BSO's performance history with search results linked to a PDF of the corresponding program book. Sarah's turn.
Okay, so, oops. gotten the background from Bridget. Let's just fast forward several years into the future, and let's meet Henry. So all of this process of building that back-end performance history database kind of culminated in this online search engine that we call Henry, after the BSO's founder, Henry Lee Higginson. And I'm going to run you through a few screenshots here just to kind of give you an overview, and then we're going to do a live demo if the internet cooperates. But what the end result was here is a search engine that has some features such as a drop-down menu here, so you can start typing and it'll search the keywords from our OPAS database and bring up options just to kind of help people figure out, how things are, how we spell things versus how somebody else, it prevent misspellings. Once you enter in your search criteria, you will get a variety of search results. Here, since Bridget used the Bartók Concerto for Orchestra Performance History card, I chose to use Bartók here. So this provides all of the information in a public interface that we used to only be able to access in the OPAS database on site. But now anyone at home can also access that same information. And this is just one piece of the final product. We also have our digital collections, the digital program books, which are available at collections.bso.org. And these are scanned versions of all the program books. And then there's a link between Henry and the digital collections via a little PDF icon, which I've pointed out here. When you do get your search results through Henry, then if we do have a scanned PDF, you can click on the link and it will take you directly there to the program. So, for our live demo, does anyone have a favorite composer that they would like to throw out there?
Verdi. Barber.
I heard Verdi first. So I'm just going to type in Verdi. And the internet connection is running a little slow, so just bear with me. So they sort by date automatically, but you can also narrow your search with the filter results. I want to see everything that Koussevitzky has conducted by Verdi. I can narrow that. I can narrow it by work. So Koussevitzky only conducted 2 works by Verdi, apparently. And this is a live update, so once you select your filters, then the results update themselves automatically. You don't have to run the search again. And these all have program books, so we click on the link. And eventually, we will get to a digital program.
We've been having troubles with content DF and PDFs, just so everybody knows.
More on that later.
More on that later.
And so you can view the program book in its entirety. So that took the better part of 5 minutes versus an hour. So in order to complete this project, we had about $250,000, $250,000 budget. We had Bridget, she hired me. We had a project intern, and that was it in terms of staff devoted to the project and resources. So how did we kind of accomplish this on a shoestring budget and minimal staff? So we used a lot of vendors. There were over 300,000 pages scanned as part of this project, and so we resorted to Internet Archive in order to scan the bulk of the bound volumes of program books. And you can actually go to Internet Archive and see the entire bound volume as one object. And there's some minimal metadata there as well. But we also wanted to be able to link individual concerts to specific records in OPAS. So we took these giant PDFs and we parsed them into individual concert PDFs. And we uploaded them into our own customized installation of Content DM, and that's how we display our digital materials through Content DM, although we found they work better for some items and file types than others. And the Henry interface itself was designed by web developers and built by web developers. Adage Technologies was already doing the BSO's website, so they're kind of a natural company to turn to when we added on the interface for the search engine. We wanted to make sure it integrated with the website as well. And here's one of the volunteers who I believe started with the original Lotus database and has continued through all its various iterations. He currently has the OPAS software open on his computer screen there. And this is what the OPAS is: orchestra personnel administration software used to manage musicians, but it also works great for recording performance history. And this is kind of what a standard entry looks like. And what we did once we uploaded the digital program books to Content DM, that generated a Content DM ID number, which we then added to the OPAS record on the back end, so that would generate a URL that would provide that link from the search engine Henry to the Content DM installation. So some general tips that we sort of discovered through this project was it really helps to outsource as much of the work as possible. Where you can, work with vendors. We worked with volunteers. The volunteers had put in about 15 years of work into the performance history database, building that up before this project even started. So without that, we would have had nothing to put online to begin with. And we did a lot of collaboration with other departments. The marketing department at the BSO handles the website, and so they were highly involved with working with us and with the web developers, communicating our needs. We provided the expertise of what we wanted people to be able to search by, and then the marketing kind of talked to the web developers and made sure they stayed on task and on time, mostly. So a few other issues that are somewhat unique, not necessarily unique to music libraries, but come up a lot, are dealing with diacritics in your metadata. And we quickly discovered that when somebody is typing, they usually don't bother to add the diacritic, But if they are just typing Dvorak without the diacritic, then they would think that they would get no results in our database. So to solve this, we had to add entries to each of the OPAS records for composers without the diacritic, so that when someone starts typing in the name without the diacritic name will pop up. And we did this with a lot of titles as well, which were in foreign languages, in addition to artists and composers. We've also learned that it's important to kind of work with researchers and users to start broad and then narrow with the filters, mostly because somebody will start typing in symphony number 2 with a pound sign instead of written out and not get any results. So it's better just to start with a basic word and then narrow it down. And then one thing that we've been doing kind of behind the scenes is working on creating a manual for OPAS entries, especially for work titles, so that we don't have 3 different versions of Symphony Number 9, one with a pound sign, one written out, and O, one written, just to kind of make sure that we ourselves on our end are entering the metadata in a consistent way. This is one way in which working at a public library or academic library would have provided more of a metadata standard to work with, because there's definitely those standards out there, but working within an orchestra that kind of had its own unique approach to things, we've kind of been working backwards and trying to codify what's already there, so we don't have to do a lot of retrofitting of the metadata. So a few other factors to consider are don't digitize if you want to make your life easier. Life is not a Tanglewood picnic. To access our resources, we've essentially doubled the number of resources that we have to manage because we have the physical copy and we have the digital copy now. And so not only do we have to make sure that the originals are kept safe, but we also have to keep on top of migrating the digital files, continuing to work with the vendors to work out bugs and glitches, and just overall it increases the staff time, because this is mostly what I'm focusing on now, since Bridget already has enough on her plate as the Lone Ranger. However, if you do want to increase your access, that is definitely a good reason to consider digitization. So here's always the fun part where you kind of sit back and think, okay, how could we have made this project easier? So one issue that we ran into at the very beginning was we mistakenly thought that one of our vendors would provide web development, and that was sort of the misunderstanding on our end, and quickly realized once the project stalled that they actually did not provide that at all. They were willing to recommend that we needed a web developer, but there's miscommunication. Yeah.
$20,000 for making that recommendation.
Yes, they were willing to be paid to recommend that we needed a web developer, but we sort of went around kind of miscommunicating at first until we realized, oh, they can't actually, this is not in their area of expertise, we'll look elsewhere, and kind of got the project back on track. And even when working with various vendors, we found it was important to maintain a lot of contact, following up, checking in, reiterating what you need several times if necessary. We would often have meetings where we would describe the fields that we wanted the online search engine to have, and come back the next week and they were not added, so we just had to repeat what we needed. So we kind of coined the phrase, be gracious but tenacious. in order to get what you need done. And I'm going to invite Bridget back up because she's sort of received a lot of the feedback from this project, especially this very enthusiastic researcher saying thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, it's been nice getting positive feedback. We don't always get positive feedback. Sometimes there's a little bit of confusion about how to use Henry, our new search engine. But once we talk people through it, they see how powerful the filters are and how you can really get so many details. So this was just one of my favorite. We did a sort of a soft launch like last spring or so, and so when somebody would call me up and ask me a reference question, or if they would email me, I said, well, go to archives.bso.org and type this in and then use the filters, and that's after doing that. One of the times I did that early last spring, this guy was just so excited that he could just search on his own the BSO's performance history. And then, yeah, what? Oh, yes, and then actually, I guess Deborah isn't here today from Northeastern, but Northeastern wants to deaccession all their Boston Symphony Orchestra bound volumes. So she gave me a call. I said, well, they're all online now, so she's going to link something on their website to our website. And actually, when we did the scanning of our bound volumes, we ended up having to cut some of them down the middle, because if any of you are familiar with them, some of them from the mid-50s are like this thick, and they didn't work well on the book scanners and the Internet Archive. We keep 3 copies of all the bound volumes, so it was hard to do it, but we sort of slashed the bindings a little bit. So I'm going to actually pick up Deborah's bound volumes, and those I'll use those a lot in our reading, because I'm still going to keep all the bound volumes in our reading room as well. Now that we've finished doing the BSO, everybody assumes that the POPs is up there too, but we haven't tackled the Boston POPs performance history yet. What's up there is all the BSO concerts and at Symphony Hall and on tour and at Tanglewood. Also, a lot of the Tanglewood Music Center orchestra concerts are on there back to 1940 when they were established. What we're going to try to do is we've applied for some additional funding that would actually enable us to there's no Boston Pops performance history database at all, and that's going to be a monster, because they always are doing arrangements and medleys of pieces, and the titles and the works and the titles it's going to be very challenging, and they don't document. My volunteers did a lot of great verification of program information when we did our performance history database. We went to our orchestra personnel files. We have payroll records going back to the 40s when we joined the union. So they used that as a basis, because sometimes what's printed on the program page isn't what happened at the concert. So and then when there was a discrepancy, we went to clippings, because we have a huge collection of concert reviews, and so we would verify what actually happened at the concert as we were inputting the information into OPAS. But we hope to be able to make the Boston Pops programs available, and also all the Tanglewood Music Center. We're getting increasingly lots of reference requests about the history of the Tanglewood Music Center, because of so many of the composers and musicians that have gone there over the years. And they're coming up on their 75th anniversary next year, so we're trying to get money to digitize all the programs and get the rest of the performance history in there. And also the Boston Symphony Chamber players are in here as well. So we're hoping to do that, but it will take some funds. And I should have mentioned also the Sloan Foundation. The first project, the project was funded by NEH, and then the Sloan Foundation came up and supplemented the NEH grant, and that's how we did the cost sharing on the project. And so the project was fully funded. The BSO didn't have to come up with the cost sharing part of the grant.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Hi, fabulous. Very exciting to know about that. Two questions. One, have you found in the limited amount of time that you've made this available, has it been in programs and stuff so that the subscribers will
Yes,
learn more about
yes.
it?
Last year, we had a blurb in the program book, so that, and then, yes.
Have you had an upsurge in people having found general information in the programs and on the database, have they been coming to you for more questions?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Just like last week, somebody said, oh, these are all the favorite concerts I went to of the BSO over the years. And now that I can get the exact dates, is there any way I can get a recording of it? Because we have an extensive radio broadcast archive, and now they want copies of everything. It's like, so we have a procedure for that. I mean, generally we don't give people digital copies of things unless they sign a waiver or if it's for educational purposes. But with one of the grants we've just written for the Tenwood Music Center, we want to experiment with using Henry to also have an icon that you can then click on the little the audio thing, and then listen to the concert as well. And that's what our NEH application we just, well, I don't know if anybody's on the panel, but but anyway, we want to experiment with using our new Henry interface to deliver audio to, or just start experimenting with it, because our musicians will come and the soloists will come around and they'll let us hopefully deliver all the content at some point in the future.
I think the second question was, like the Chicago Symphony, I know you guys have got tons of clippings about specific concerts, reviews and all that. Are there any plans to incorporate the scans of the clippings into the same database?
That's my other favorite project I want to do. Because, well, we did preservation microfilming of all of our scrapbooks with all those reviews. I'm sorry, I should come over here. Back in 1993. And we're going to buy a microfilm scanner. I mean, I'd love to go back and scan all the originals again, so it will look as beautiful as the clipping scans that Sophia showed you a little bit. You know, the nice yellow paper and zooming in and that sort of thing. But in the meantime, we got approval to get one of those microfilm scanners, because I would love to then be able to make it so the researchers can then click on a review icon and then go see the concert review associated with the concert. But, you know, I mean, that's gonna be a while.
Gotta finish the pops first.
Whatever somebody will fund, I guess, that's what we'll do next. Oh, and I will say also that I left up some information sheets about our project on the back table, so you can pick those up if you'd like. And it tells you how to get to our site and a little bit about our project history background. So please feel free to come on up.
Okay, so we are still really on time, so that's great. And what we're going to do is divide into 2 tour groups. There's about 50 of us, so if we can try to keep it kind of roughly 25-25. Doesn't have to be totally exact. So Charlotte Cole-Zeminski is going to lead one group, and then